Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan asking some interesting questions. A question that he would ask. He brings this up. If I got to talk to Trump, well, if you look at your comment section and everybody, we all want you to talk to Trump. Why don't you just reach out and ask the questions? But he asked one question of what it's like to be president. What can he actually do now? What will he actually do if he's elected president once again? And they talk about some mistakes that he made in regards to personnel his first go round. Then I got Trump actually talking about those mistakes in his first term as president. Then I got Tucker Carlson talking to RFK Jr. about what his role is going to be in the administration, and it's actually very interesting. He's a part of a few things. It's almost like he is a second VP with the way he's talking right now. And then we have Trump announcing a certain department or ambassador that is going to be going around the world to different manufacturers trying to bring jobs to America. I'm telling you, man, Trump is going for legacy in this one. Let's get right into it, the Rogan clip, and then we'll go to the rest after. Let's go.
He does get in office, then it gets very interesting. Because then it's like, what can he do now? Like, how much different is his take on it now? Because one of the things that he said is the first time he got in, he didn't know anything about governing. He's like, I had to find people, and I picked some of the wrong people, but I know better now. And I could do a better job of it now, which kind of makes sense. Because if I wanted to talk to him, one of the things I would really want to ask is, what is it like? When you actually get in there, they don't think you're going to be in there, and now all of a sudden you're the actual president. Like, What is the resistance like? What are the communications like? What can you say about how you have these conversations with these people and how you govern, how you get things done?
Yeah, how much power do you actually have?
What is it actually like? Because we all have this sort of mystical view of what it's like to be the actual president, but very few people, and only one ever that's not a part of the system has ever snuck through and attained that position. It's only him.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear his answer to that. It wouldn't surprise me if, in a weird way, when you become president, you feel very powerless once you're sitting there, because you realize that you're overseeing this just gigantic, mammoth thing that's just so unwieldy. There's no way to really control it.
Yeah.
And especially in his case, you've got so many people within his own administration plotting against him. So,
is there a lot of people within his own administration now, you think, plotting against him, or only then? Do you think it's just like backstabby politics that just they do, period?
I mean, at the time there certainly was, but I think he also made some bad choices in personnel. He made a lot of really bad. I mean, bringing guys like John Bolton in, there's no chance that you're not going to be undermined by somebody like that. And especially, in Trump's first campaign in 2016, drain the swamp was one of it was build the wall and drain the swamp and lock her up. Were the three big things. And we don't hear drain the swamp nearly as much anymore. In fact, I don't think I've heard it. It's never said anymore.
Right.
Which is unfortunate, because that is the first thing that needs to happen if he gets in there. And what I would love to see is that, okay, he's in there now. He got back in. They tried to stop him. They tried to kill him. They tried to put him in jail. He still got in there. He's not getting reelected. This is it for him. 4 more years. He's out of politics forever after that. And I'd love to see him just, I got nothing to lose now. They're going to put me in jail when I'm out of office, so I got nothing to lose. I don't care what these people say, and just ruthlessly push your agenda through, no matter how much they complain about it. I'd love to see him do that. I think that they're assuming he will, which is why they're so desperate to stop him. But I don't know. It didn't happen the first time, so I hope it does.
What's also going to be very interesting to see, like, what do they do to try to prevent this from happening in the future? Because one of the things that has been discussed is cracking down on misinformation, and that free speech doesn't include misinformation, which is a wild thing to say after what we just went through with COVID, where what people were saying was misinformation turned out to be 100% true. And not just about COVID, but about a bunch of things. Hunter Biden laptop story. There's quite a few different things you could point to. Like, who the gets to decide what's information? Only the government? You guys? The people that have lied about basically everything? Like, this is a crazy thing to say, and to be running on that and to get people to support that. Just the lack of understanding of what it means to be able to freely express ideas and communicate, and whistleblowers from corporations that are telling you about something they're doing, it's illegal. Whistleblowers from government agents that are telling you they're spying on you when it's illegal. All that, like, to have that be filtered through the government is an insane position. And yet that's something that they talk about. And this is something, bizarrely, that the left supports.
Well, even if it is most of the stuff they call misinformation isn't, but in the case when there's something that is it's just not true, plenty of that goes around the internet, that's still free speech too. You have the right to say things that are not, as long as you're not slandering somebody, you have the right to make claims about the world that don't happen to be true. So the idea that doesn't qualify as free speech is, of course, absurd. And then that also requires some central authority to be the arbiter of what is true and what is not.
Exactly. And it's like a childish view of truth and lies. It's childish because one of the only ways that people find out if something is correct or not is let someone say something that's incorrect, and then someone who knows a lot more comes along and corrects them.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it works. Like I had Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard, the actor?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant guy. But wrong about a lot of the things that he thinks he's right about. I brought him in with Eric Weinstein. And Eric Weinstein, who's a genius, like a legitimate genius and a mathematician, explained him like very patiently and carefully, this is why you're wrong, and this is what you need to know, and you've got some good ideas, but you're off on all these different things. I'm an actual expert, and let me help you out here. And so anybody who saw Terrence Howard talk on the first podcast had this idea. Like, oh, wow, maybe he's right about all these things. Anybody who saw the second podcast with Eric, where Eric clearly corrects him and actually knows what he's talking about, he's a brilliant guy. Now you have that's what free speech is supposed to be about. That's what it's supposed to be about. An actual expert comes in, corrects everything, and then you have this look at it like, oh, okay, now I see. Now it's been, but it's not silence Terrence Howard because he doesn't know what the he's saying. No, it's like, let him talk. Now let someone who really knows what they're talking about explain to him why he's wrong. That's the benefit of free speech, and everybody who listens to that has a better understanding of all these different really weird, complex things that they're discussing that maybe otherwise you would never have illuminated in that way. You would never really be able to understand it.
That's why I think the free speech thing is, people act like it's a complicated subject. Where do you draw the line? What is free speech? What qualifies and what doesn't? I don't think it is that complicated, really. I think it's just you should have the right to express whatever your opinion happens to be. Everyone should be able to say their opinion, their point of view. Wrong or right, reprehensible or not, they should be able to say it. Yeah, you can't defame someone, you can't threaten to kill somebody, but those aren't really opinions. That's different. It's like, if it's just your opinion about what's happening in the world, it should be allowed, and it should be allowed legally. It should be allowed on every social media platform. I think it's kind of simple, actually, to differentiate between that and because there's certain kinds of speech that should not be allowed. We all understand that.
Yeah, it's complicated, and this childish idea that just handed over to the government to clean it up, that's not the answer. It is complicated. There are going to be people that say a bunch of things that aren't true. But the way to combat that is not put the government in charge of what's true. Right. Especially when they've been wrong so many times. Or they just out and out lied so many times. That's a crazy position for the left to take. The ones who are supposed to be the party of science and reason, and the ones who are supposed to be the most educated. It's just a bizarre perspective just because you don't want Trump to win. You don't want this to happen again.
And hate speech too is the other label they use to. You can't say. Tim Walz said this recently.
Yeah.
About free speech. He said, well, of course you can't. Hate speech and misinformation doesn't count. But what is hate speech? Hate speech is just you're expressing that you hate something. Well, that's people hate things. It's legitimate. There are some things we should hate. So the idea that it's automatically illegitimate to express a view if it's communicating hatred is, of course, ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it's also a really goofy label that you can slap on basically anything.
Right.
Like hate speech can get to the point where if you call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, that's hate speech, right? That's dead naming. Dead naming falls under hate speech. And so what are you saying? You can't do that? Like, well, that's fucking ridiculous. I can call him a but I can't say his name is Bruce. That's insanity. Like, what world are we living in where you can decide what someone can and can't say by a label that's so wide? It's such a net you're casting. Hate speech, it's like completely subjective. Anyone can decide what's hate speech.
Right. It implies that all hatred is automatically bad, or at least it puts the people in power in position where they can decide what kind of things you're allowed to hate and what you're not.
Right. And it makes things all equal, too. Something like very benign versus something truly awful. It's all under this one stupid umbrella of hate speech.
Oh, man. So, talking about Trump, and also when they're talking about this whole hate speech thing and not allowing this all to happen again, it's it's due to the fact I've done an episode on it where Kamala Harris is talking about censoring people, censoring Trump in particular, saying that he has foregone his privileges because of the things that he's saying, and Twitter should take his account down, which they actually did. It's just, it gets out of hand. And, thank God for her, because she's a clear example of it. A clear example of someone who is now a presidential candidate who was calling for someone to be taken down from a social media platform, and decided to go a step further with her administration, the Biden-Harris administration, and actually penetrate these social media platforms and do exactly what they were seeking to do to millions of Americans, millions of famous people, and just whoever wasn't going with the narrative whatsoever. So, interesting stuff. Will they be able to stop another person like Trump from doing what Trump did, using social media, really getting under their skin, getting directly to the people? I don't know that they're going to be able to stop that again. I don't know. On Twitter, they will not, because Elon's not going along with it. It seems like Meta, say what you want about Meta right now, maybe Zuckerberg turns a leaf and starts going, maybe I should do it kind of like Elon. I don't know. And then, other video streaming platforms, no platform in particular, maybe they'll stop, doing what they do to people. Not this one, though, because YouTube's wonderful, actually. I'm bringing that up for no reason other than to say, thanks, YouTube. Am I right? This is the free speech place, right? Yeah. Anyway, it is, though. It is. Great place, I have to say. Great place. I did have to bleep out the word code, though. I had to bleep that out a second time. There you go. So I'm just saying, Now let's move on to Donald Trump. He's actually talking about his mistakes. A lot of people say he never does, but he actually did in this podcast with Sean Ryan. If you don't know about the Sean Ryan podcast, go ahead and check it out. He did a 1 hour and 11-minute interview with Donald Trump, but this is near the end. Let's listen.
On Pennsylvania Avenue, which was a great hotel and very successful, and then sold it. And then what happened is I didn't really know anybody in Washington. I was a New York person. I wasn't like a Washington, D.C. person. And all of a sudden I'm president, and I'm driving down Pennsylvania Avenue with more police and motorcycles and military than I've ever seen before in my life. I said to my wife, do you believe this? I'm president. But I didn't know anybody in Washington. And I had to rely on people to give me names. And many were really good. I mean, Bob Lighthizer, I had great trade people. I had some great people. But I also picked people that, in retrospect, I wouldn't have picked. But now I know the smart ones, the dumb ones, the weak ones, the solid ones, the ones like you. I know the people. I know everybody, sort of like everybody. And we're going to have a great government. I didn't know. I had to rely on people I'd ask, I don't want to use names because I don't want to embarrass. They're not bad people, but I'd ask people that were rhinos, who do you recommend for such and such a position? All important positions. And they'd recommend some people that were rhinos or something, or weak or not good. And I don't have to ask too much right now. I know the people, and I've known them through fighting and wars. I've known them through, because all this stuff. I had great support. Don't forget, I beat Nancy Pelosi. I beat all these people, every one of them. And somebody said, if you look at it, he beat the Clinton family, right? And that was really Obama too, because he was behind her 100% like he was running. And I beat the Bush family. I beat everybody. And now I beat Biden. I got him out. I beat him twice, actually. I beat him the first time, but now I beat him a second time because it was the debate that got him out. And now I have to beat somebody that nobody ever heard of, who's a Marxist. And I think I'll be able to do that. But I know the people now. I've been in government now for 8 years. I was in government for no years. I mean, I became president and I said, I've never done this before. It's pretty, sort of a miracle. In the history of our country, we had 92% politicians become president and 8% generals. Not admirals, but generals, only generals. So those were the only two. politicians and generals. George Washington, Dwight Eisenhower. Actually, he was very good, very strong on the borders. Eisenhower was strong on the borders, a moderate guy, but very, very strong on the borders. He had big deportation. But 92% was politicians, and 8%, there was nobody else. And then I came along. And so people were surprised. But I know the system, I know the people, I know some great people, and I know some people that I wouldn't put in. But you learn that. And so now I'm a very experienced guy, and we're going to bring our country back. And we're respected. We're going to be respected again with other countries. Don't forget, I had no wars. Other than I defeated ISIS, but that war was already started. That war was raging for 20 years before I got there. And I ended that war in 3 or 4 weeks. So, a lot of people give me credit, even people that don't love me, as being a great president, because we did a lot. Right to try. I got right to try for people that are terminally ill, where they can use space-age medicines. We have the best labs and the best doctors in the world. But you couldn't use it because you just couldn't use it. You weren't allowed to use it. And I got that done, where you can use these space age that won't be approved by the FDA for a long time, maybe 4 or 5 years. And I've saved thousands and thousands of lives. But now I know the system, and I know Washington, and I know the people. And I hope we win. And if we do win, we're going to make this country greater than ever before.
Man, absolutely amazing. It is kind of incredible to become such a seasoned, because people can say what they want, MSNBC, people will always make up things, but to be such a strong president with such a strong foreign policy, to be so strong when it came to navigating the waters of war and not starting new wars, because it's not easy to be intimidating and also not start any new wars. For him to be able to handle all that and then come out all seasoned like this after not being in politics at all, it's pretty exceptional. I mean, obviously, it's the business world and the fact that he's a billionaire and he has to navigate these people who are probably more ruthless than politicians, if you can imagine that. I would think the billionaire class, these people, whether it's real estate, tech, whatever, they're probably a little more, because they're definitely more powerful. I mean, goes without saying. So they're probably more ruthless. So I guess it makes sense that he's gotten to this point. But that's him saying he didn't know. He didn't know what to do. And funny enough, he's like, you believe this? I'm president. RFK actually said that same thing. He said when he talked to Trump, Trump was like, I'm actually surprised that I won the first time. But this is RFK talking about what his role is going to be alongside of Donald Trump. And, this is all to just answer the question of what Joe and Matt were thinking. What's he going to do? Matt brought up something. He said, drain the swamp, which you're going to hear RFK talk about right now. But he also brought up ruthlessly pushing his agenda. If you really look at everything that Trump is presenting to the American people right now, this is him ruthlessly trying to push a bunch of things through. Like I said at the beginning of this, it really seems like he's going for legacy. Listen to this.
And he's definitely in that category. How do you envision your role in a Trump administration?
President Trump has asked me specifically to do 2 things. One, to help unravel the capture of the agencies by corrupt influence. In other words, to drain the swamp. And I got to say something about President Trump. President Trump has some extraordinary gifts, and one of them is that he has very, very good instincts. And that when he came out the first time, you remember, he was very against the lockdowns publicly. He was for hydroxychloroquine. He was for alternative medicines. He was against the mask. He was doing, but all of his, he was surrounded by bureaucrats and knowledgeable experts who ultimately pushed back on those assumptions and got us into some policies that I think were really bad for our country. He's not going to do that again. And he wanted to end the wars. He said back then, we don't want to go into the Ukraine war. I'd rather make a deal than have a war. So I think that, and he's asked me to do that, and he's asked me to help him end the childhood disease, chronic disease epidemic, and make Americans healthy again.
And if given the power to do that, what'll you do?
That's unclear, because there's no, at this point, thank you. Like I said, I'm on the transition committee, and there's no, we don't have, I don't have a post for myself that's picked out. I know that I'm going to be deeply involved in helping to choose the people who can run FDA and NIH and CDC in a way that restores public health rather than.
Can you imagine if you're at FDA or NIH and Bobby Kennedy all of a sudden? I mean, they must be dying. They must be dying.
But I'll bring in people to run those agencies like Callie Means, like Casey Means. And,
you think they're going to, they have nightmares about that.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, and they should. Bobby Kennedy, thank you. May they have more nightmares. Larry Elder, thank you very much.
So that's very interesting. There's going to be a transition committee. They're starting it now, pretty much. He said 5 months before, so that's already in action. Tulsi's on it. This is, again, back to the whole legacy thing. What can Trump do? Is he going to ruthlessly push agenda? It seems like it. He's going for the unity. He's making sure his transition committee has 2 lifelong Democrats on it that are highly decorated, one from a prestigious family and one that is building themselves up into a prestigious person, which is Tulsi Gabbard. They're unraveling agencies, and Bobby Kennedy is going to be the one actually helping with that. And who knows what that means when we talk about unraveling an agency? Are we talking about dismantling these agencies in a certain way, the Bureau? What exactly is going to happen, right? And then, drain the swamp. He actually mentioned that. Matt was just talking about how he hasn't heard that very much, and crazy enough, it comes from RFK. You think you'd hear that from Trump or from someone else who's a little more, crass maybe, but RFK is the one that comes out with that. And it's very, very interesting. So that's kind of what you can expect from Donald Trump. Oh, and then I have this last clip here. This is Donald Trump's newest announcement. Listen to this.
Finally, to exploit these pro-manufacturing policies, their full potential is going to happen. It's going to happen very quickly. I will appoint a manufacturing ambassador whose sole task, and it'll be a great one, will be to go around the world and convince major manufacturers to pack up and move back to America where they want to be. They want to be. For years, we watched other countries steal our jobs. Now we are going to be going after their jobs and bringing them back to America where they belong and where, frankly, they want to be. They want to be.
That's very interesting. A manufacturing ambassador. What that sounds like to me is there's going to be some guy who's going to be, hopefully it's like Vivek or somebody. Maybe it's just going to be someone straight from New York that Trump used to work with, but it's going to be somebody who's just like approaching businesses saying, hey, you used to have 7,000 jobs in America. What happened? You okay? Oh no, we're just doing things, a little Taiwan, little China, we're just making more money. That's all. Oh, okay. Okay. And that's what you want to do. Okay. Sorry to bother you. All right. Then all of a sudden Trump just announces 700% tariff on XYZ company. And then that same guy shows up again. He goes, hey, so you ever reconsidered bringing those jobs back to America? Yes, all 7,000 are going to come back to America. That's where I want to be. Oh, so glad you reconsidered. I think that this is going to be a shakedown. This is a shakedown ambassador that's going to be going around. He's going to be like, listen, Listen, Honda, I know what you do, Honda. Listen, all the jobs come to America or it's bad business for you. Honda's just gonna be like, oh, me no problems. Oh, no, we don't make Asian accents like that. YouTube, hold on, let's go big screen here. YouTube, I apologize. I was gonna go into the Reiki wrong time. I was gonna go into that, YouTube. I'm apologizing now. That's what I'm doing. Okay? I'm more mature than that. I know, but I was talking about Honda. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm sorry. I apologize. Just, we're cool. We're cool. I don't even talk about Rumble. I don't even talk to Rumble. Okay? I'm just saying, we're cool. I barely even talk to Spotify. I'm just saying. I apologize. Sorry about that. Have to save that kind of stuff for the stage. Can't be doing crazy Asian accents like that on YouTube. My apologies. I'm so sorry. We'll pull it back. Should have went with a New York accent and just done the mobster thing. I'm sorry, YouTube. But I think that's what's gonna be happening. It sounds very interesting. And again, I'll say it again for a third time. It seems like Trump is going for legacy with this whole thing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. already said that's what Trump wants. He wants the whole helping the children with all of the ailments and the adults with all the ailments that they have throughout America because of the food industry. You know, he said he wants that as part of his legacy. The medical industry as well, if you know what I mean. They're going to be going after that as well. So it seems like Trump is really going for legacy for this one. And, the other side just has an opportunity economy. This is where we're going to inflate the prices of houses and we're going to print more money. We're going to print so much money. It's fine. Opportunity economy. Tim, do you have tampons for everyone? Everyone gets tampons as well. That's part of my opportunity economy. You can put it wherever you feel. The other person has no plan. And the mainstream media is just like, her plans are absolutely America. I love the vibes and I love a good opportunity. Am I right, guys? I mean, I love price controls. Venezuela did it. They're having a great time. And there are people who are falling for it. They're like, yeah, control prices. Yeah, opportunities. It's like, wow. I'm never the type of person to say that certain people shouldn't be able to vote. I'm never that person, okay? But what's wrong with all these people? That's all I'm saying. We're biased here. We admit it here, okay? Public Enemy #1 shirt. I'm wearing it. I got a Trump shirt over there. We're biased here. And it's just fine, okay? Anyways, guys. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Helps us tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.